hello, everyone. Welcome to, wow, we never thought about it that way. And Tim and I, we were just playing around a bit. We had some technical issues that sometimes happen. So apologies that we were a bit late, but we are ready now. And I'm very excited about this conversation. And I'm going to turn off this air conditioner because it's actually disturbing me in the background. Um, Tim and I, we met back in, I think it was either 2018 or 2019. I think it was 18, yeah. And one of the things that I remember was at least I was in 19, I was interviewed on your podcast. And I remember like, wow, is it possible to talk about such serious topic and actually feel so uplifted and actually have fun, because at the time we talked about my son and everything that was going on at that back then. And I thought I would love to have you on, Tim. So I would love for you to introduce yourself. Welcome, Tim.
Okay, thank you, Rita. My name is Tim Wotton. I am older than I look. I'm 53 years old. I live very close to Wimbledon in England. I've worked in the energy sector. I do internal communications and change in big companies, big corporate companies in the energy sector. That's another reason why Rita and I have some crossover. Um, but I suppose the really big parts of my life, I've got a wife and a 17-year-old son,
Mm.
and um, none of this was really ever likely because I was born with the very life-limiting um, lung condition called cystic fibrosis, which most people have heard of, but very few people really appreciate how severe it is.
Mm.
So I'm calling this double trouble because I was born, it's a genetic condition affecting major organs like my lungs, digestive system. Both my parents were carriers without knowing. Then there's a 1 in 4 chance that any of their children would get the actual condition. My twin brother, the tall, dark, and handsome one, he got away with everything. He's even got good eyesight. So he's not affected. He's not even a carrier, bizarrely.
Mm.
But I got cystic fibrosis from birth. The prognosis was to only survive till 17. And that would be doing well to get to 17. I was
Wow.
born in 1971.
Mm.
And this type 1 diabetes is a side effect that I inherited about 14 years ago. I joke it's my reward for staying alive, but effectively the pancreas got more infected, and you then are it's cystic fibrosis related diabetes, but it's effectively type 1 and I insulin dependent. So,
Mm.
two major conditions
Mm.
that I've had, but the CF is the one that is more likely to have killed me. Go to the next slide.
Mm.
So my whole life felt like it's in an hourglass. You know, I was told quite early on that I had this when I was able to have a level of consciousness because my medication started at a very young age.
Mm.
I've always been taking tablets, nebulizers, inhalers. Um, and as a child, you sort of kind of you don't fear it's going to happen to you. I don't sit there and worry too much when I'm a child. I was very active with my brothers playing sport, so it didn't feel to me like I was about to pass out and leave this world. But when you know your life is unlikely to last very long, and you've known that, and you have a lived experience of it from your whole life,
Mm.
it does give you a very different perspective. I've taken literally nothing for granted my whole life. Every
Mm.
day feels a blessing to get one more day.
Mm.
And I'll sort of reveal more in a moment. So, next slide, please.
Mm.
This is the slide that really does impact people because I look pretty well.
Mm.
People think, well, maybe it's not so bad, cystic fibrosis.
Mm.
This is my day every day. This isn't a month or a year. This is every single day is all these drugs from morning pre-breakfast through to before bed.
Mm.
It's a mix of tablets. I take about 40 different tablets a day.
Mm.
I actually quite like the coloured ones. It makes it more interesting for me. if there was the Olympics about to come up, if you had a
Oh,
game or Olympic sport for mixing different types of drugs together and swallowing them in one go, I'd pretty much be in the GB team for that.
oh yeah.
And then there's nebulizers, there's the injections for insulin, and I do these when I'm at work. I tend to try and hide it away. I'm not very visible with that.
Mm.
Um, but a lot is done at the start and end of the day. That's probably where I bookend the day. But I'd like everyone who sees this to remember that is my day in the life of every single day, no day off. And this, for
Mm.
most of my life, was to stay relatively well. It
Yeah.
wasn't to give me great health.
No.
It really was to actually stave off death. Next
Hmm.
slide.
Wow. It's like keep just the momentum and
Yeah, you
yeah.
sort of had to be very
Oh,
committed to it, and I'll explain my commitment in a moment. This slide is there just to show viewers that this is how it ends. Wired to machines, you would have enough infection in your lungs that you would be on oxygen.
mm,
And then from there, you would be listed for a lung transplant, but there's no guarantees. You can see in this picture, she's got nasal oxygen and she's wired to different intravenous's. I've had about well over 100 intravenous treatments throughout my life, and they last anything from 2 to 6 weeks. And
mm,
that's pumping the drugs into my heart via the tube.
mm.
And bearing in mind that's on top of that day in the life of the you've seen. But sadly, we do have to fight to the end, and that could easily have been my ending. Next
Yeah.
slide.
Yeah. Mm.
So, why am I still here? That's the pertinent question, isn't it? And I've got a holy trinity of my survival to share. That commitment to that medical regime you see, it's wanting to take your meds rather than feeling that you have to,
Mm.
and that comes from taking accountability for yourself, which isn't always easy when you're a teenager. You always want to do other things that are more interesting. But then you get to a point, often for me, the big catalyst was to be so unwell that I never wanted to be that unwell again when I went to uni. I was trying to manage it all on my own in London. That's when I really stepped up my commitment. So, really making a commitment to yourself that
Yeah.
you will do it as well as possible and not miss things, cut corners.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that I had in my favor was that I love sport, and it's kept me alive because I've been able to exercise these knackered lungs, these very poorly lungs that
Mm.
have infection all the time. They're not very good. I'm not able to run that well, but I've never stopped giving it a go. And I go to the gym.
Mm.
It doesn't look like I'm doing much in that picture, but most of the time I do a good weights workout and get on the treadmill.
Well, you
I
look
was
very good. You have always looked really good.
Um, the other thing is I do play field hockey, team sport, which is a good distraction because you then have to mark your opponent, and you can't just say, sorry, can I have a moment while I cough, please? You've just got to keep battling, and it's probably pushed my fitness more than it ought to have been otherwise. And I played all my life. I was an England junior, so I was good.
Mm.
I could never really quite do what I wanted to with my talent because
Yeah.
post university my health badly dipped.
Yeah.
Just because I enjoyed life, it's not like I sit and wait for the inevitable. I do try and do everything my peers do, and interestingly, I try and benchmark against my healthy peers rather than
Mm.
thinking, how am I doing against other people with my condition? It's just a mindset I've always had. And now, I mean, I'll share in a moment, but I actually now play hockey with my own son. So it's gone full circle. In fact, I'm playing later tonight in the same team as him. Um, so yeah, so medical commitment, regular exercise, and the last one is the gift of mental resilience. That I'm going to do a deeper dive on this topic,
Mm.
but I've learned a lot about the power of the mind.
Yeah.
Self-taught. No doctor from my sort of age group was ever telling me, Tim, sort your mind out. Because it just wasn't talked about. It was the physical act of taking your tablets. That's
Mm.
what they wanted you to do. Nowadays, there is psychological support for people with long-term health conditions like cystic fibrosis, but it's
Mm.
been very self-taught, trial and error. I've learned that practice makes progress. You never feel you're perfect with looking after your mind and mental resilience, but I've certainly learned a lot about that's really helped. And now they're all three are together, all cogs helping each other. Now, this is the sad fact. If I did just one or two of these, I'd still be dead. You need all three
Wow.
with a long-term condition, all three working off each other. Even if I took all those pills that you've seen, I'd have been dead years ago because I wouldn't have been exercising, and I wouldn't have been in the right mindset. So you need all three.
Wow. So it's like what do you call it? Vengram. That if you
Venka,
put it,
yeah.
yeah, when you put these three together in the middle, it says life.
Yes, it's
And
sort
you
of
take
it's
one away, it's not life.
no, but with that is some very hard times. It's that these three doesn't mean I'm having a red carpet of a life.
No.
There's been some horrible times, and I've lost. It's
Mm.
important for me to state, I've lost hundreds of friends
Yeah.
to cystic fibrosis over the years around the world.
Yeah.
Um, and with each of their passings, it's very hard for me to stay committed, but I've also wanted to live on in their memory. But when you've got a long term condition,
Mm.
and someone has got the same life as you has just died,
Yeah.
some leaving children behind as well, it does cut to the core.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, there's probably next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, now one thing with that is, you see me today, I look pretty well, but often
Mm.
with unseen, invisible health conditions, it's what lies beneath. And I'm on a bit of a mission to try and improve invisible or unseen health conditions in the workplace. I think it's of the D, E, and I topics, it's probably the one that's really gets the less airtime.
Can you
And
repeat, can you
all
say that one more time? Can you? I'm sorry, I'm going in here, but I want the listeners to hear what you just said. You're on the mission to.
I'm on a mission to help improve understanding and accessibility for people with unseen or invisible health conditions in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of the D, E, and I topics, I think it's the one that gets the less visibility, focus, and airtime. They're all worthy. I mean, I don't want you to feel think that they're not worthy. The other topics, they really are. They all need airtime and backing. But I do believe that accessibility for people with invisible or unseen conditions is one that needs to be improved.
Mm. Mm.
And I think the next slide sort of speaks to that as well, actually, Rita.
Mm.
Yeah, trying to bring your true self to work. My whole life, I've worked in big corporates where I've hidden everything away. Those drugs that you've seen, I used to do them in the men's toilets.
Yeah.
It's sad, really sad. I
Yeah.
couldn't be that open
Mm.
because the stigma is that, oh, well, he's less than perfect and he'll just want sick time. So I've sort of defied the odds in many ways, and one is still working full time my whole life, despite the fact that what I have to do in the sort of in the visible territory is that there's a whole wave of drugs that I have to do to even show up on time.
Mm.
Now, the true DE&I that I really support is that anybody can say, I'm safe, I matter, I belong. And I think a lot of companies now understand this and are more progressive. But
Mm.
in my opinion, we've got a long way to go,
Yeah.
certainly around accessibility.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Mm.
Now, from good comes bad, or bad comes good. Let's look at that, because
Mm.
I've learnt a lot in my 53 years with a medical condition that is always chipping away at me. I've had many hospital stays. As I said, I've lost many people with the condition over the years. But actually, I've got a certain level of awareness and consciousness about what's important in life.
Mm.
And I'm making sure that every day feels a gift and is joyful
Mm.
despite all that I go through. Now, I just wanted to explain what post traumatic growth is.
Mm.
When people have been through PTSD or any levels of trauma, they unwittingly sometimes there are actually some amazing good things come out of it. So I just wanted to highlight four that I have identified in myself. The first one is the gift of appreciation of life,
Yeah.
that every day feels a blessing, and I go out there and try and make the most of that day. Um, Now, each day I could put on two types of t-shirt. One says victim, one says survivor.
Mm.
And whatever you put on the word what for the from the wardrobe is your identity that day.
Mm.
And I would completely understand why everybody with my conditions would feel like they're a victim, because
Yeah.
it's damn hard
Yeah.
and it's not something that you asked for. You were born with it, so
Mm.
you've got no choice.
Mm.
But I personally, my mindset's always been one of the identity of being a survivor. I try and be the happiest person in the room. Um, though some people might say that's just fake, but actually I do really. Luckily, it's my DNA is to be fun loving, and I don't sweat the small stuff. It's really not important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and when you've got the Grim Reaper looking at you most days, you can actually say that with conviction. This
Yeah.
isn't worth sweating over.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what to take seriously in life. So I
Yeah.
do.
For
The
sure.
life is short. I mean, you have most people have a concept around it. They would intellectually understand that.
Mm.
Very few people have a lived experience of what a short life really means or when it's being compromised.
Yeah.
The next one there is again that power of the mind, personal strength, and positive mindset. That, I talk about that sort of either victim or survivor. That's the
Mm.
mindset that I've inherited and developed over the years. It does mean that I've got some very good positive habits that I've developed. There's a great expression, fix the roof while the sun is shining, which means when things are going relatively well for me or anyone, lean and find those habits around meditation, being in nature, exercise, so
Mm.
that when something bad does happen, and it will, and
Mm.
often comes out of left field,
Mm.
that's when you need to lean into those habits more. A very good example was during COVID. I was on the very high list of being vulnerable, both with cystic fibrosis and diabetes. So March 2020, I had to leave home and stay away from my wife and son for 6 months. And I stayed with my mum in Southampton, but it meant that I actually didn't know for that whole period if I could ever see them again. Because my wife's a nurse and
Yeah.
my son was going to school, so they both could have brought COVID into the house and finished me off.
Yeah.
So that's just a very good example. I was there at my mum's, bless her. She said it was the best 6 months of that year, having me around. Um, bless her. But it was tough because every single day I meditated in her garden just to have a moment of transparency where I didn't look forward too much and I didn't reflect backwards too much. I just was as present as I could be with breath work,
Yeah.
and leaning into that habit was the difference in those 6 months, probably between getting very depressed and just staying roughly on top of it.
Yeah.
So that was an example of leaning into the sort of personal strength that I've developed over the years.
Yeah.
There is a spiritual change I wanted to highlight.
Yeah.
Just understanding my consciousness and what makes me tick and observing myself.
Mm.
People talk about observation through meditation. You
Mm.
can observe when all your different emotions, and be importantly, be your self coach, not self critic.
Mm.
So I have now developed that where I am looking to make sure that I look out for myself and
Yeah.
don't need someone else to tell me or guide me. I worked it out when I should be more caring and self care. So meditation is something I've developed over the years.
Mm.
Important to say in meditation, everyone's got a different style. I don't use the app with someone talking to me. That wouldn't suit me. I
Mm.
prefer being in nature and following all my different sort of like all the different signals out there with what can I see, what can I
Yeah.
hear, what can I feel, what can I smell in the summer as well,
Yeah.
and understanding, this is important, understanding that practice makes progress. You're never perfect. If you start meditation and think you're just going to turn the monkey brain off instantly, you're going to have a tough time.
Mm.
So just develop it over time, even if it's just a couple of minutes at a time. That's better. Having a couple of minutes just being serene in nature is better than, you know, trying to see if you can go for 30 minutes or more initially. You'll never do it.
Yeah.
Um, I honestly believe, Rita, that we humans have all the wisdom we ever need inside us, but we're never still long enough to hear it.
Mm.
So it's important you find the way you're serene and quiet. Some people like go to an art gallery and just,
Mm.
you know, see the actual paintings, and that makes them stop and be
Yeah.
present. Everyone's got a different way.
Yeah.
Mine is being in nature, and through the breath. So the spiritual change is definitely another post-traumatic growth. And
Mm.
lastly, social impact, helping others. I honestly believe you do help yourself by helping others.
Yeah.
Um, Unwittingly, I got to a point, age 40, where the biggest achievement really in my life I was doing nothing with, and that was sharing my survival story, both through writing. I started with a blog just to see, does anyone really care what I'm saying? I mean, I'm a writer by trade and by business,
Yeah. Yeah.
but to then write about my own story, it was a bit of a Pandora's box. Once you've opened it, you're like, well, I can't close that. Um, and then
Yeah.
that led to a public speaking, which I've done all over the world,
Love it.
big audiences and small audiences, and being able to make a difference to others.
Mm.
And when I wrote my book, How Have I Cheated Death, which is
Mm.
again lends into the title of this talk, it
Mm.
was obvious to me if I helped just one person in the world,
Mm.
it would have been worth it. And it's countless how many people have come to me and said, "You've helped me or my child," and that feels amazing. But that social impact is being a side effect of my suffering, and helping others.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive in some of those, but if you go to the next slide.
Mm.
Yeah, so I basically have turned my nightmare, and it could have been a nightmare, into
Yeah.
a gift.
Yeah.
And that is the sort of wow, I didn't think of it that way. That it would all be too easy for me to just focus on the dark, macabre, awful life. But actually, my main focus is on how I can make every day feel a blessing. You know, see beautiful
Mm.
things around the world or with people that actually makes every day feel worth it. Now,
Yeah.
I've a little written on that tag there, E plus R equals O,
Yeah.
and that is events that happen to you
Yeah.
plus your reaction
Yeah.
equals your outcome.
Ooh.
Very simple equation. E events, you know, stuff that can happen to you, plus how you react to it equals your outcome. And so that's what I've really that equation, that formula is what I've really honed in on.
It's a
It's
great
how I
idea.
react. Yeah, it's simple, isn't it? It's
Yes.
how I react to everything that happens to me. Because
Yeah.
even with a game plan around mental well-being and
Yeah.
resilience, it doesn't stop bad things happen to you, does it? It's still going to
No.
happen. You know,
Yeah.
stuff out of left field. You're still gonna have to suffer. It's then how you react to that suffering and those
Mm.
events and what you tell yourself. I mean, I do believe the most important person you ever speak to is yourself.
Yeah.
And that is something that a lot of people go their whole life without realizing. And they're
Yeah.
in a vertex and maybe even a vortex of despair and anxiety their whole life. Some of it,
Yeah.
if they've got medical reasons why it's struggling. But
Mm.
actually, I do believe it's how you talk to yourself can make the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. I just want to just bring in, uh, one of the powerful questions that I often use is related to that exactly. And that is, what is this problem designed to solve? And how awful and painful it is that diagnosis isn't there to necessarily be changed. We can maybe do something with it and into the future, and things are changing. But in that very moment, it is ultra painful. And then with the mastery, with the mastery of mindset, we can actually look at the situation from a level of curiosity and say, okay, what is this designed to create? And what I'm hearing, Tim, is that what you have created is awareness around the world of also what is possible. Um, yeah, so I wanted to share that. Mm.
No, no, thank you. And If people tell me that I've helped them, or even better, that transform their life, then that's just beautiful to hear. I'm not, because each day I have to reset and start again with all the meds.
Yeah.
I never get ahead of myself and start getting, any hubris or ego, because
Yeah.
it gets knocked out of me too quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, back in April, I had a lovely week in Lanzarote with my family. Health was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I went to Zurich with business and caught a really awful respiratory virus. Not wasn't COVID this time, but it knocked me back so
Yeah.
badly that
Yeah.
I'm now, very close to needing another hospital stay.
Yeah.
And that just tells me, they're
Vulnerable.
like this. If you understand the snakes and ladders,
Oh
I've
yeah.
I've been on a few ladders, but then there was a gigantic snake that I
Oh
wasn't
yeah.
ready for,
Yeah.
and all
Mm.
the trauma came back. The trauma that I'd sort of been hiding away
Yeah.
because I had been better for a while
Mm.
suddenly came back when I couldn't catch my breath, couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, and that was only 2 months ago.
Yeah, I remember because we had a brief chat around that
Mm,
time and you weren't good.
yeah,
I want to just to bring into from the audience here. So Danny McAtee is here, and he says, "Thank you for having this conversation. As a career paramedic, I deeply appreciate this topic. And I met Danny in Santa Fe recently, and he has some incredible stories in his field. So thank you, Danny, for sharing that and being here."
thank you.
Mm,
I've got a couple slides just to close it out, and then we'll
sure.
take any other questions. Um, yeah, so the giving back, I sort of alluded to it. I wrote the blog, which is called Postcards from Earth. That led to this book, How Have I Cheated Death? And lots of public speaking. I won a book award in London,
Mm,
and being able to then hone my public speaking and sharing my story. And actually, I'm not emotional today. It could still happen,
mm.
but the first 4 years of trying to speak, I would cry.
Yeah.
So the actual is always on the surface,
Yeah.
and because I've been through a fair lot, and it's actually what I've learned is it's more human if I talk about something about facing death or cheating death, and occasionally are prone to emotional moments. That feels more real and
Yeah.
vulnerable than if I do some amazing presentation and it looks like, how is he talking about this,
Yeah.
and doing it minus any emotion. So it's being at peace with myself that it's
Mm,
okay to feel emotional about something that is so ingrained in my life, that's been so traumatic. But I have been able to give back, and I have been able to help people around the world,
mm.
which has meant a great deal.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Yeah. And emotional. I mean, it's important to be emotional because we show emotions. In general, I say, uh, whatever we are bringing on the table, we are human, no matter if we
Yeah,
have illness or no illness. So we have to bring that up. Oh my goodness, this is a familiar one.
yeah. I mean, sorry to put out a picture that's pretty ubiquitous, but how do you make something that feels impossible possible and being resilient? And that's
Mm,
something I've talked about a bit already,
mm,
but it needed. I think it was different people at one time
mm.
told me to read the book by Rhonda Byrne, The Secret.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that you were meant to hear or see things
Mm,
as guidance. And
yeah.
when in the same week two people told me about The Secret, I then bought it and went straight to the health page. There's a health
Yeah.
chapter,
Yeah.
and I literally penned everything and
Mm,
underlined it, ticks. And it was just the change from, oh, woe is me, I've got two conditions, no one understands, I'm the one that suffers, to actually thinking, well, why not me? And rather than bemoaning what I don't have, actually appreciating what I do have. So
yeah.
that was the flip. So think of a negative thought. We still get the negative thoughts, of course, every
Mm,
day. We're sort of hardwired to negativity in our brains. So think of it as a baseball bat. It comes in, and you're going to knock it out of the park away
mm,
with a positive thought. You're replacing it with a positive thought,
yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
what I've learned.
Yeah.
And in front of the mirror every day, brushing my teeth,
Mm,
those are the moments in silence that I'm telling myself the day I'm going to have,
yeah.
and being appreciative of the things I do have, Again,
Mm.
not worrying, concerned about the things I don't have.
Yeah.
And that was a big step change for me
Yeah.
in my setup of every day.
Yeah. This really
Yeah.
resonates. The when it comes to impossible, I'm not. I'm possible versus impossible. That shift. Audrey
Oh yeah,
Hepburn
yeah,
used that
yeah.
famous quote.
So here are some Tim's top tips. I love that.
Love it.
After a couple of drinks, it's not so easy to say. But I was going to share them because hopefully somebody will get something from at least one of them. I mentioned our brains are hardwired to negativity. You need to
Mm.
change the channel to positivity. Our brains tend to be tuned into, radio doom and gloom.
Yeah.
Try and find the channel again. So batting the negative thought out, change
Mm.
the frequency to something that is a lot more upbeat, like radio harmony. Something, in your own mind that you're just flipping the switch.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Um, when you do have difficult news, difficult situations, bad health out of the blue, the quicker you accept it and
Mm.
don't rail against it,
Mm.
then you'll be quicker to then adapt to the situation.
Mm.
What we resist persists.
Yeah.
So that's something that people should remember,
Yeah.
that the longer you stay in that um, uh, area of anxiety and then don't accept your situation or your plight, the longer you'll be in that stage of worry and really struggle to get out of it.
Mm. Mm.
Number three of Tim's top tips is be your own self coach, not self critic. I've said it already on the call, but I'm repeating it.
So cool.
You can create your own misery or joy. It's a choice.
Yeah.
And I think there are people that want to be, they'd say their aspiration is to be happy. I think that's unlikely to happen. I think you're
Mm.
more likely to get moments of joy.
Mm.
And I go hunting for them every single day, whatever may be happening.
Yeah.
And actually, there can be some very joyous moments in the madness and despair that
Mm.
you can find. You've almost got to fake it until you make it with that
Yeah.
smile and find joy, even though through gritted teeth. Because that, for
Mm.
me, feels a better way to get through tough times than
Yeah.
getting into even more despondency.
Yeah. But it's this power of looking for. I mean, we have this seek and you shall find. I mean, when we are really focused on something, something actually pops up. And I also love, power of now. When we talk about power of now, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is rainbow and roses, whatever they say. But it's the power of being in the now, also in the challenge, and see what's going on.
Yeah.
So just like you say as well, be your own coach, not self critic. That means when I hear that, being your own self coach, that isn't to try to just change the feelings to feel good. It is to go through and understand. This is how we create resilience, is to deeply understand the way in which we're going through something. And that's a coach is also helping with. And when you're self-coaching, and I do this a lot as well, is like I'm having conversations with myself also when things are really challenging, and I'm looking for the nuggets. I'm looking for something in the darkness that can move me forward.
Yeah.
Mm.
That self coach thing doesn't happen overnight. You've got to keep working on yourself,
Yeah.
because you're worth it.
Wow.
I want to give a bit of data on this one, and this is
Mhm.
useful for my son who's 17 or younger,
Yeah.
through to every adult I've ever met. 95%, and it may be even more, 95% of what we worry about never happens.
Mhm. Yeah.
You could easily say, my life was a series of unfortunate incidents, most of which never happened.
Exactly.
And it's important to
Yeah.
remember that data and that statistic, because
Yeah.
I try and cut stuff off at source with positive mantras so that my brain doesn't worry about stuff that then never happens.
Yeah. Like so many things I worried about, so few came through.
Exactly, exactly. That leads me to number four again.
Mm.
Hopefully, over reliance on the word gift. But if you
Mm.
take one thing from this presentation, someone who, in theory, like me, has very little to feel there's a gift about,
Mm.
feels that every day is a gift worth having. So, with moments to feel alive, people looking, and I was in London yesterday working. I know that everyone's looking at their phone,
Yeah.
and they're actually even worse, I'd say, looking and bumping into people.
Yeah.
I'm looking around for all the beauty,
Yeah.
whether it be people with other smiles on their face. When
Mm.
I'm around nature, amazing nature in the air, birds, anything,
Mm.
beautiful sunset.
Mm.
It's missed by most people every
It
single
is.
day. And then you'll see articles of people who've been knocked down, struggling with health. They
Yeah.
go, "Oh my gosh, I'm now appreciating all the small moments." Every
Yeah.
single day of my life, I've appreciated the small
Yeah.
moments because,
Mm.
in theory, most of my life, tomorrow may not happen.
Yeah.
So you're on my eyes, and my ears, and my heart being open to everything that costs nothing. All these beautiful moments are free. We just need to be alive and more conscious to see them and be aware of them and experience them.
Mm.
Um, and then the last one, we are human beings, not human doings.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to just be.
Yeah.
And I talked about, really sort of relax into the present moment and
Mm.
give yourself permission to stop still
Yeah.
and actually be present
Mm.
um, and not actually criticize yourself if you feel like you have to be doing something, hence the human doing.
Mm.
Surrender to the present moment, follow your breath.
Yeah.
And as I said, people talk about having a physical workout, going to the gym, whatever
Mm.
you might want to do. This is your mental workout every day.
Mm.
And I really encourage people, if they've not really seen it that way and being competitive with themselves,
Yeah.
to be competitive about having your physical workout and your mental workout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, these are all underpinned in the blue at the bottom.
Mm.
Practice makes progress. It will never be perfect. And that's
Yeah.
important to remember.
Yeah. What is perfect anyway? Can anyone define perfect? It's no. There is
No,
no. There
but
is no such thing.
we all think other people have gilded lives that are perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's another realization.
Yeah.
Now, I close out by showing what is really important to me. That playing hockey, there's my son Felix. He's taller than that now. Um, my wife Katie. Now, this is what I get in the end for having stayed the course,
Mm.
had a good game plan with the meds, doing them every day,
Mm.
regular exercise, and that positive mindset, underpinned by the fact that post-traumatic growth has enabled me to help others and make a social impact. So
Yeah.
from bad has come good,
Yeah.
and those are the main things I wanted to share. And feel free to ask any questions.
Yeah. Should I close down the presentation now? Uh,
Yes,
or
yes.
do you have another one?
No, no, that's it.
We're fine. Okay. Let me just do like this. I just want to make sure. Okay.
That seems
Yeah.
to work.
There we go. There we go. Perfect.
That's technology.
Yes. I'm just going to play with it. So Tim, this is just incredible, and I'm going to check LinkedIn here. I mean, we're streaming on YouTube, we're streaming on LinkedIn, and one message came up here, and not everyone necessarily comes up. So I'm just going to go in and see if there is anything. Yeah, unfortunately I can't get it up to generate. But we will go back and answer any questions, and I'm sure you will answer questions as well. You know, there's so much of the thing that you are sharing that, first of all, I feel, of course, close to my heart in my own situation with Benjamin, who was also diagnosed with a life-threatening disorder. And for when I'm thinking about your presentation, I love your IP there. I mean, you have to make sure that you have your IP. For Benjamin, it was like, I really believe that there is no way to happiness, but happiness is the way. And happiness turned out to be the way to medicine for him as well, focusing on the joy. It didn't mean that you're completely ignorant to what's truly going on. But like you shared as well, each day is so precious that you can only live in the now, in the power of the now. And I can share one thing that was pretty weird, and that is when Benjamin was in ICU, and it was a very dramatic situation, and there were two anesthetists that had never seen this condition before, and they couldn't find the DIPS notes or in the hospital notes of how to eventually intubate if he couldn't breathe anymore. And that moment turned out to be a moment of blessing, because when Benjamin then came through it, we were rejoicing, because now there were two more people that knew how to do it, could help more patients with very challenging trachea or breathing pipes. And the hospital journal, or the DIPS, were updated to the dot. And so it's this ability to go in and the drama and see that, okay, well, now when you come out on the other side, I'm glad it actually happened, because now something very unique came out of it. I was thinking about, there was one question. I think it's about your incredible drive. I mean, I remember when I met you, I remember you were the MC at the conference, I think it was the Katie Murner conference in London. And this engagement, like holding space, holding energy, holding the audience. And then I was thinking, and wow, how does he do it? And I'm wondering, how has your mindset been able to impact your physical, like in these moments where you're actually in front of people, and you're holding this up so powerfully? How has your mindset impacted the physical in those moments?
Yeah, it's a good question. Again, I think distill it down to the fact that every single day is one more,
Yeah.
and tomorrow could still not happen for me. The date today, 20th of June, 2024. You only ever get one, 20th of June, 2024.
Yeah,
There'll
yeah.
never be another one.
No.
And make the most. Even, I'm not going to try and say that every single day is an amazing day. I just make sure that I find moments worth living for in every day.
Yeah.
And you sometimes have to really hunt for them on particularly tough times.
Yeah.
Now, at that engagement, it sort of means that when I do meet people, I want them to feel really important. So maybe I've got a knack of being able to make people that I meet and speak to, they feel the most important person in the room. Because in that moment, I want, every contract leaves a trace, and I
Yeah.
want their trace of me to be a positive one.
Yeah.
And, and then often people would play sport with me, and 10 years later they find out that I've got a lung condition. I've
Yeah.
never told them,
Yeah.
but I don't want them to think and be introduced myself. Oh, by the way, I'm Tim. I'm playing with you today, but I've got bad lungs, so don't pass the ball to me. I tend to let them, find out organically, and
Yeah.
then they often suitably impressed that I've kept it to myself and just wanted to sort of be, do myself justice and not try and mentally make
Yeah.
myself worse than I ought to be, and be there on my own merit, as it were.
Yeah, that's really powerful, because it's, when you talk about, you can choose to be a victim or a survivor or a thriver. Like one of the things that I say, you can choose to be a victim, or you can choose to be in charge. And what I'm hearing is that you're in charge. You take charge, and it is easy. And again, from my own experience as well, we have the opportunity to put it as a sign in our forehead with good reason. Like, I am not saying, with very good reason, that this is painful, this is hard, this is like, we can do it. And we can also do it in another way of seeing, let me see what I can do a bit more today. So I don't let this be my intention for the day, but my intention of the day is to feel better. And as I heard you share, it's like you wake up in the morning, you do your meditation in the middle of the day. Personally, that has been one of the most important things in my 27 and a half years with Benjamin. He was diagnosed when he was 2, when I expected to die when he was 7, lived 20 more years. And in the meditation, one of the most powerful things that I've experienced was the ability to bring up the visuals of incredibly happy moments. I remember, like, so visual that they were visceral. So before I would start my day, I was in a high visceral energetic state. And I've always been in this kind of also look for the thing, and I have to share this something with you, because I believe that, like you said, when two people are telling you something, there is something to it. Like, read The Secret. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
And I'm also constantly looking and sharing this with your audience, because yes, we can talk about illness, but we're also talking about being leaders in organizations, and everything's really hard, and everything is like, do we look for the signs that might mean something for us? And I want to just share what I saw. It just caught my attention so profoundly. I was out biking here in Alanya, and I see this billboard sign, and it says, "Discovering new concepts of life." I saw it one time, and then I read it into order enough to forget it. And suddenly the other day I saw 4 of them, and I thought, well, that is a message of some sort
Yeah.
to discovering new concepts of life. And
Yeah,
that's
you're meant to see that, and it's serendipity about it.
serendipity, absolutely. And one of the things that I'm curious about is from corporate perspective, because you also work on this in corporate. What is the biggest, I wouldn't say the biggest impact, I'm looking for the right word. If I'm thinking about your mission inside organizations, can you give us an example of a change that happened because you brought this to the surface, or to the forefront?
Um, I'm not sure how much I can give you on this because it's such a early work in progress.
Okay.
I've been a business consultant where the last thing you want to admit is that you're fallible, not well. And so actually for a lot of my career, this is why it still needs a big change.
Mm.
I've hidden everything away.
Mm.
And I've actually met lots of prejudice when I have tried to share. People wouldn't give me a job. I've never mentioned my health in any job interview because when I did once, I didn't get the job, and they are
Yeah.
not duty bound to tell me why they didn't. So yeah, we do have to play a bit of a game with an unseen or invisible health condition,
Mm.
and I feel that the people with health conditions have amazing levels of resilience.
Yeah.
They are exactly the sort of people you need to be working for you. They'll be loyal if you look out for them, and also they won't sweat the small stuff, and you won't be moaning to you about pointless stuff. They'll take the right things seriously.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm on a mission to try and improve the mindset from, oh,
Mm.
well, what will they actually do, and what's
Mm.
the point, because I think they'll be off a lot, versus ask them what they need,
Yeah.
support them, and then make them feel valuable.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, and we're miles away.
Yeah.
And there's lots of nice positive talk about accessibility
Mm.
for people with poor health, whether it be physical or invisible.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing we're a long way away from where is accepted as it ought to be.
Yeah.
So that's I'm not a very good story because I said to you I had to do lots of treatments in the men's toilets just to hide it away.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my own choice. Um, but I have
Yeah.
done jobs as a business consultant where personally I felt it would have gone against me if I had been more honest and open about my health. The
Yeah.
irony being, if you Google Tim Wotton, you'll see a whole world of things I'm doing out there. So it's very obvious, but most
Yeah.
people wouldn't do that. But
Yeah.
there, that's one of my missions is to try and improve awareness and appreciation and
Yeah.
understanding that actually they bring a lot of super strengths. People with accessibility issues,
Mm.
neurodiverse, they bring a lot of super strengths. But
Yeah.
work with them, ask them what they need, and then empower them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you're sharing. I didn't dare say my story that, I have a son with a death diagnosis. When I started to work in the corporate job, I didn't dare. Not that they indicated that they couldn't take it, but I was so afraid that then they wouldn't have me. And then when I look back at the 20 years in corporate, my goodness, they were lucky. They were so lucky to have me because I operated as every single day was the last day to be in the office because tomorrow for sure I will be in the hospital with Benjamin. I mean, come on, talk about an
Yeah.
employee that is like,
And the difference there, Rita, people count the days. You made each day count.
absolutely, absolutely. So you're on a big mission, and I think I want us to really bring that up. What is what is standing in the way for this mission at the moment? Like, yes, it's early days, there's a long way to go, but what is standing in the way right now?
I still think there's lots of prejudice and misunderstanding about unseen health conditions.
Yeah,
So, there are D&I targets. Some are very nominal, how many people with disabilities should be in the company.
yeah,
I think that the targets should be more visible. Um, a couple of years ago, I did approach a couple of companies that in and the external did seem to tell a good story,
yeah,
but when you then approach them,
yeah.
you would be treated just the same as anyone else. You,
I
you
know.
wouldn't be getting any help or guidance on, hey, it would be great to have you because
Mhm.
you've got some needs, we can look after you. It was
Yeah,
almost like the doors were quite hard to get open.
yeah.
So I mean, I'm not going to achieve this on my own.
No.
Working anyway full time and a
Mm,
busy parent.
mm.
But I do believe, and I have a passion that I will keep telling this story, and so it becomes more visible. And and habits change. HR are more enablers. Okay, they're the ones that help hire. They
Yeah,
work with the hiring managers to bring
mm,
people on board.
mm.
If they understand the importance and what they're going to get is actually infinitely better than what they'd expected from somebody with a health condition. It's
Yeah,
just it's almost just making sure that they appreciate the value they're going to get, the loyalty, just by asking certain questions. How can we make this work? Tell me
yeah,
what your needs are, and then empower them.
yeah, yeah. And I think what I'm hearing as well is how important is to show and not tell. I mean, you're showing, you are going out. We are talking today. You're showing the world what is possible, and that is the. I love the distinction of showing versus telling because you're showing it. And I hear that what is needed are more of the who can help, who believe in the same mission as you. So my invitation to anyone listening is who of you, of us, who feel inspired to be showing up and wanting to learn more, definitely should reach maybe out to Tim, could reach out to me as well, because it's a collective thing. This is nothing that we do alone. And I think this is why I always go by the question, don't ask how, but ask who can help, who believe in the same thing. Let's get together, and then we're moving forward together, and don't get stuck in the how, which tend to be policies and all the other things, because now we need to do something, but they forget to speak to the who is
Yeah.
actually involved. um, Anything else you would ask if you could get anything today? I mean, this go viral, billions of people see it, and you could ask anything and you would get it. What would you
Just
have
I
for
ask
it?
people to be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah, be curious. Yeah, I know, I love that. Thank you so much, Tim. I love this so much. And you're easy to get contact on LinkedIn, people watching here on YouTube as well. If you're watching on YouTube, again, if you go to Tim Wotton, and that is Wotton like cotton with a W.
You know my catchphrase.
I know. So with that, I wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful day. And yeah, let's be the who in this
Let's
case
be
as
the
well.
who.
Let's show up. Absolutely.
Rita, thanks very much for having me.
You're so
Always
welcome.
a pleasure. You look lovely. And suntanned as always, like a goddess.
I think of being in the warmth of Turkey.
Bless you now, Rita, and good to be part of this and share my story.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Thank you.